Welcome back to another Explainer, everyone. Today we're diving right into the ultimate daily battle. You know the one. It's happening in bedrooms, home offices, and dorm rooms everywhere. On one side, you've got these massive life-changing dreams. And on the other, yep, your morning alarm clock. If you've ever felt totally stuck, just unable to bridge that gap between where you are right now and where you desperately want to be, well, you're absolutely in the right place. We're going to break down exactly how to build lasting discipline and literally transform your life using some super actionable steps straight from our source material. Let's get into it.
So ask yourself honestly for a second. Do you ever feel like there are literally two completely different people living inside of you? I know. It sounds a little crazy, but you probably know exactly what I mean. Think about the late-night dreamer. This is the version of you lying in bed at like 11 p.m. You're super inspired, right? You're making these grand plans to get rich, get fit, change your family's life, basically conquer the whole world. But then, the sun comes up, that alarm goes off, and suddenly you morph into the morning snoozer. The very first thing you do to start your day is smack that snooze button. And the really harsh reality here, that snooze button doesn't just steal 5 minutes of your morning, it effectively kills the momentum of those big dreams you just built the night before.
Part 1. The Comfort Zone Trap. The Enemy Within.
The biological truth behind why we get lazy is actually super fascinating. Because, it's so easy to just blame a lack of time or not having enough money or a lack of opportunity for why we aren't moving forward. But actually, the main enemy is our own comfort zone. And this is driven by the fact that your brain's ultimate goal is survival, not success. Your brain is literally hardwired to conserve energy, find the absolute easiest route, and avoid hard work like the plague. It just wants you to stay on the couch. It wants you to stay tucked in that warm bed. Comfort feels safe, but comfort is really where dreams go to die. We need a system stronger than our brain's default factory settings.
Part 2. Motivation versus lasting discipline. Why feeling inspired isn't enough.
Okay, this comparison is the absolute foundation of everything we're looking at today. We all constantly binge motivational content, right? You get this massive surge of energy, but then 3 days later, boom, you're right back to your old habits. So why does that happen? Well, it's because motivation runs on emotions. Think of motivation like a total sugar rush. It gives you a massive, thrilling spike of energy, but it inevitably leads to a crash. You just can't rely on it long term. Discipline, though, that runs on decisions. It's more like a really well-built engine running on premium fuel. Highly successful people don't just sit around waiting to feel like working. They make a firm decision to put the work in, whether their emotions are on board or not.
So how do we actually build that engine? Let's look at Part 3, Step 1, the 5-minute rule, tricking your brain into action.
Picture a real-life scenario for a second. You've got to write this massive report, or maybe you need to dive into a brutal 2-hour study session. You sit down, you stare at that blank page, and what happens? Suddenly you have the overwhelming, undeniable urge to clean your entire kitchen. Right? We've all been there. This happens because staring down a massive 2-hour block of hard work makes your survival-focused brain completely panic. It sees this giant mountain, gets overwhelmed, and immediately triggers heavy procrastination just to protect you from the exertion.
So what's the magic number to instantly bypass that panic response? 5.
Here is your step-by-step guide to beating that procrastination. Step 1. You just tell your brain, hey, we're only going to work for 5 minutes. That's it. If we want to quit after 5 minutes, we totally can. And because that task feels so incredibly small, your brain relaxes. The panic just kind of vanishes. Then, Step 2, you sit down and you just push through that initial temporary resistance. Which brings us to Step 3. By the time those 5 minutes are up, the friction of starting is pretty much gone, and this psychological state called flow kicks in. Before you know it, those 5 minutes naturally snowball into 15, and then 30 minutes of really deep, productive work. You literally just had to trick your brain to get over the starting line.
Now that we're moving, let's look at Part 4, Step 2, Master Deep Focus, Sustaining the Momentum.
We tell ourselves all the time, I just can't focus. But listen to this incredible quote from Sheldon Howe. Focus is not doing more, focus is removing more. Think about that. You don't actually lack the ability to concentrate. You're just suffering from a massive, overwhelming excess of distractions. Literally every notification, every buzz, every open tab on your browser is stealing your momentum. If you want to sustain the work you just kicked off with that 5-minute trick, you absolutely have to ruthlessly curate your environment.
And here are the specific, totally non-negotiable rules for creating that focus environment. First, bed equals sleep. If you're trying to do your focused work while lounging in bed, your brain gets super confused. It thinks it's time to rest. Second,
Desk equals work. You need a dedicated physical space that sends a clear signal to your brain that it's time to execute. And finally, the biggest rule of all, phones equal off. Not on silent, not flipped face down on the desk, off. Or better yet, in another room entirely. By removing the noise and those constant notifications, you protect your deep focus. It makes your work sessions shorter, but infinitely more powerful.
Part 5. The Power of Small Habits. Compounding your daily actions.
See, it starts incredibly simply. You sit at your dedicated desk, phone is off, and you read for just 10 minutes. It might not feel like you're moving mountains, but guess what? You've already won a huge victory over your comfort zone.
Then the next day, you add another block. You practice a new skill for just 10 minutes. Again, the resistance is low, but the consistency is starting to build up. You're basically casting daily votes for the kind of person you want to become, a disciplined person. And then you work deeply on a personal project for another 10 minutes. This right here is the true secret of highly successful people. They aren't relying on these massive, exhausting 14-hour days fueled by a fleeting burst of motivation. No way. They rely on the compounding power of small, consistent daily actions. Actually doing the work every single day, whether they feel like it or not, is exactly what turns an ordinary person into someone entirely extraordinary.
Now, take a deep breath for a second. A lot of people totally fail at discipline because they miss just one day, they feel intensely guilty about it, and then they completely give up. But the truth is, discipline isn't about being perfect. You are going to mess up. You're going to have days where the comfort zone totally wins. And that's okay. Discipline is simply about getting better. It's about waking up the next day, forgiving yourself, and trying to be just a little bit stronger and a little bit more consistent than you were the day before.
Which brings us to our final question for today. We've laid out the entire roadmap. You know the enemy is your own comfort zone. You know that motivation is going to fail you, but now you've got the 5-minute trick to start and the environmental rules for deep focus to keep you going. So the choice is entirely yours. Will you start your 5 minutes today and step toward the life you've been dreaming about? Or are you going to let the morning snoozer win and hit that button again tomorrow? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.